Hello, Patriots. Welcome back to another Va2A News. This is a news segment report. Today, we are talking about Senate Bill 64. It passed on the floor of the Senate with a partisan vote of 21 to 19 on February 6th. Now, there have been some very important changes made to the bill from the time that it was introduced to the time that it passed that we're going to talk about today. But before we get into that, let me just say, if you like what you see here, please like and subscribe and share the video. That's a great way to help grow the channel. Also, if you'd like to help me make videos to bring to you, then go ahead and hit that PayPal button and support our work. Okay, let's get into it.
Senate Bill 64, a bill relating to paramilitary activities penalty.
Senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, what this bill does, it helps to prevent future violence like that which we saw in Charlottesville, in addition to sending a message that any group that elects to assemble in order to intimidate others will not be allowed. Mr. President, again, I renew my motion that the bill pass.
So Senate Bill 64 is headed over to the House, and if it passes in the House, then it can be signed into law by the governor. But before that happens, there is an important change we've got to talk about. That change has to deal with the third stanza in Senate Bill 64. As originally introduced, it talked about the paramilitary activities of drilling, parading, and others that could cause intimidation. And to get to the point of that, Senator Amanda Chase is going to ask some very poignant questions, specifically about Lobby Day, and if this bill would have affected those who attended.
My question is this: would Senate Bill 64 make individuals assembling armed on Lobby Day illegal?
Now, Senator Lewis's response to this is going to be a little bit off target. It's going to deal more with the bill rather than the person, but you'll see another senator is going to pick up and assist for her in just a moment. But let's hear what she says.
That bill will not make Lobby Day illegal. What the bill intends to do is prevent future violence like that which we saw in Charlottesville, and unless these groups are assembled expressly for the purpose of intimidating others, the bill does not apply to them. This bill specifically applies to people who assemble with the intent of intimidating people.
So what you're seeing right now is the amended bill with Part 3 updated that has new language, which Amanda Chase is getting to, which is also what Senator Lewis is having a hard time explaining. Senator Amanda Chase is asking, would people at Lobby Day have been considered intimidating? And that's the question that's most important, because this part of the bill is what's been updated from the original, and we're going to hear about that now.
I might speak on behalf of the committee. We made a very substantive amendment, which nobody has addressed yet. And if you look at the language, you notice it cross-references Section 18.2-282. That is a criminal code statute which references brandishing. Right. Brandishing is when you not only have a weapon on you, but you actually point it at somebody with the intent of causing fear or intimidation. So it's not just assembling with weapons or drilling or Boy Scouts. It's when you actually take a weapon and brandish it at somebody, which is already a felony in Virginia, with the intent in causing fear for that. We made that change specifically in the courts committee, or whatever we call it now.
Judiciary.
Judiciary. In order to accomplish the purpose that Senator Lucas asked us to.
Now, Senator Peterson is talking about a very fundamental change to the bill, and he's defending it quite well, because the bill was changed to actually make it less restrictive. Specifically, Part 3 of the bill, assemblies with one or more persons with the intent of intimidating any persons by drilling, parading, or marching with any firearm or explosive incendiary device, or any components thereof, are prohibited. That was actually changed, and it was replaced with this updated version. Part 3 would now say, violates subsection A of 18.2-282 while assembled with one or more persons with the intent of intimidating any person or group or persons with any firearm, explosive, or incendiary device. Now this update's quite important because brandishing is already a part of our current law, which means that instead of adding additional law applying to drilling, parading, or marching with a firearm, it just states that anyone brandishing a firearm within a group of other people, intentionally attempting to intimidate others, is illegal. But Amanda Chase wants a little bit more clarification, so she asks quite directly this time. Let's hear what she says.
Thank you. Just for clarification, so on Lobby Day we had a number of citizens from around Virginia and across the country actually who came here with long guns and all different types of guns, peacefully assembling. And if there is someone here that, is it potential for someone that is here to feel threatened or uncomfortable or whatever, is there any potential for them saying that that's an activity that would not be permitted.
Senator, has the floor.
The short answer to that is the felony of brandishing already takes into that account. And I'm looking at the language right now, and it says it shall be unlawful for any person to point, hold, or brandish any firearm, basically with the intent of reasonably inducing fear in the mind of another. I'm sort of breezing down the language. That's been on our books for a long time. So if people are here peaceably assembled, then that's a First Amendment right, and they're exercising their First Amendment right. If myself or you or anybody else is walking to the Capitol and they take a firearm and point it at us and say, if you vote for a gun control bill, that's going to be your last day in this building, that is potentially a brandishing. So I'm not asking everyone to support this bill, but the bottom line is it does not do what some of the folks think it does.
Now, the rebuttal is important to note out that Senator Peterson talks about the language of the law. And here is 18.2-282. It's unlawful for any person to hold, point, or brandish a firearm or any object with a similar appearance, whether it's capable of being fired or not, in any manner as to a reasonable in person induce a fear or that they might think that they could be shot. It's also important to note that this section does not apply to a person using a firearm in a reasonable self-defense situation. But there's more concern to be had here than just the verbiage of brandishing. What about intent and putting the perception in the eyes of the beholder?
Mr. President, we're coming off on the heels of the largest assembly of individuals in support of the First Amendment in this city, in the capital city, since the Civil Rights Movement. Now we're seeing what I fear, the unintended consequences, is the suppression of guns, the suppression of the carrying and the outward display of an individual's constitutionally protected rights under the Second Amendment to carry and possess a firearm.
Now, Senator Chaffin had some valid concerns about who gets to say what is intimidating. That's not something very easy to point out. What's intimidating to you or I might not be intimidating to someone else, and vice versa. But in defense of this bill, Senator Deeds chose to speak. Here's what he said.
For what purpose does Senator from Bath, Senator Deeds, rise?
Mr. President, just briefly to speak to the bill.
Senator, has the floor.
I think the gentleman's fears are entirely misplaced. You have to read this bill and have to read it with the brandishing of a firearm statute, which is a Class 1 misdemeanor, Class 6 felony in certain situations, and only if a reasonable man is intimidated or put in fear by the brandishing of a firearm does the statute take effect.
Now, Senator Deeds' response takes it back to the letter of the law, saying that the reasonable person would have to make that distinction of what is or is not. That's the standard or the burden of proof that's set up in the brandishing code. But Senator Obenshain has a couple of interesting things to point out, specifically how many members of this very Senate said that they felt intimidated about Lobby Day. Let's hear Senator Obenshain now.
Mr. President, speak to the bill. I appreciate the Senator from Bath's comments. We've heard on the floor during the course of this session how reasonable people from different parts of the state react to somebody holding a firearm. Now, we had a lot of people from across Virginia who came from different backgrounds here in Richmond back on January 20. And if you canvass people in this room, I would suspect that there was a wide variety of reactions as to whether they were in fear for their safety. And I've heard some of my colleagues on both sides in the House and the Senate say that they were afraid, notwithstanding the fact that nothing happened.
Now, keeping in mind that this bill passed on partisan lines, the Republicans that we've heard speak today are attacking the bill based on the fact that it's too wide open, that the reasonable person standard varies very greatly between what you think and what I think. The Democrats are arguing the letter of the law about what brandishing is. But let's not forget the one big win that has actually happened here. The language that would have added new law to the code about drilling, parading, and marching with rifles has been removed. Now, this is important because the brandishing code is a well-established code which already has case law and procedural law to back it up. So it would be very difficult to say that assembling with rifles slung on your back and even held as you're walking around, like was done on Lobby Day, would be brandishing, when in fact, in years past, no one has been charged with brandishing as a crime for participating in such events. And here, on the Senate floor, we actually have the Senate members themselves saying that what happened on Lobby Day, that kind of assembly, is a protected First and Second Amendment right, and not brandishing as this law talks about. Had that change not happened and the original language been used, then yes, drilling, parading, and marching, like what happened on Lobby Day, would be a criminal offense. That's the takeaway from all this. However, as always, I want to hear what you guys have to say down in your comments below. We've heard both sides of the story now, and this was just the final day of deliberation prior to the bill passing. There was quite a bit of deliberation in committee, as well as on the previous 3 days that the bill was read aloud in the Senate. And with that, if you like this video, please don't forget to like or subscribe. Make a donation if you wish at the PayPal link. And I'm Robert Ham with Virginia's Second Amendment News. I am reporting on our rights. Thank you for watching.
And so with that, Mr. President, I would like to renew my motion that the bill pass.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall Senate Bill 64 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19. Senate Bill 64 passes.